Hi everyone, welcome to part 1 of a multi-part series looking at installing and configuring a PC for a static observatory or portable setup. Part 1 will focus on installing and configuring the fundamental basic requirements to enable mount control as well as basic planetarium setup and go-to capabilities using your mount. Future episodes will focus on setting up auto-guiding, imaging systems and plate solving software. So let's get started with part 1. First thing we're going to need to do is download each of the pieces of software. I have included download links for each of these in the description. Once they are downloaded, we'll go down to our downloads directory, and the first piece of software that we wish to install will be the Ascom platform. Ascom is one of the primary pieces of software that you will rely on for various aspects of controlling the mount and other hardware. At this point, we're going to go through the process of installing it. However, we will get an error message initially to say that .NET is not installed. This is a freshly installed version of Windows 10 Professional with only the basic drivers installed. If you have already installed various other pieces of software previous to this, you may not get this error message. Okay, for the purpose of the tutorial, I will show you now how to go about getting .NET through the Windows update system. We're going to close down the piece of software, go to the Start menu, go to Control Panel. At this point then, we need to go through and find your programs. If we go into Apps, goes to Programs and Features, and over on the left hand side here we have an option to turn Windows features on or off. If we click into that, there will be an option at the very top to enable .NET Framework 3.5. We tick that and click OK. It will then go through the process and give you the option of either letting Windows Update download and install the files for you, or you can just download them for future use. We're going to go with the top option and go down and through the process of installing the files. This may take a little bit of time depending on the speed of your internet connection and PC. Once Windows has completed the download and installing of .NET, you will be presented with this window and you can simply close it down. You can close down the other windows from the control panel, and once again we will go through the process of now installing Ascom. At this point we will get a message to say that certain bits of software are not yet installed. However, it will go through the option of automatically installing those for us. Again, this may take a little bit of time depending on the speed of your PC. Once Ascom has finished the installation, you will be given this screen, at which point you can click Finish, and that will be installed successfully. The next piece of software we are going to install is EQMud. So we're going to double click the setup file to install that. The standard setup procedure, 90% of systems is going to be fine. Once this goes through, we can untick the two options as they are not needed at this present moment in time. Click Finish. The next piece of software to install will be Stellarium Scope, which will be the piece of software you use to enable the mount and Stellarium to talk to each other. We're going to accept the agreement, go through the install. We will create a desktop icon and install that. At this point, we do not want to launch Stellarium Scope just yet. The last piece of software we're going to install will be Stellarium itself. I have chosen the 64-bit version for this installation. However, on certain older systems you may wish to use the 32-bit version if you get performance issues later down the line. Again, we accept the agreement, go through, and for a new install, the normal configuration as it's presented will be fine. At this point, we do not want to launch Stellarium just yet, and click Finish. That is the basic pieces of software for part 1 installed. The next thing we will need to do is go about configuring EQMod so that it will talk and be able to control the mount. We go to the Start menu. We're going to scroll down until we find EQMod, and the application we want is the toolbox. At this point, what I recommend that you do is right click, click More, and we want to pin this to the taskbar. This will make life a little bit simpler going forward. So we're going to click on the EQMod toolbox, and at this point you want to make sure that the mount is turned on and connected to the PC using an EQ cable. For this particular tutorial, because I do not have one connected up, I will go about using the simulation. However, every other aspect of this will be identical on a live system. So the first thing we want to do, click the register. It will give us an error, but it will say success. Next thing we need to do is we need to go into the driver setup, and this will present us with a number of options. Initially, what we will need to do is go through and select the communication details to connect with the mount. On a live system, first thing I would recommend you try and do is use the Find button, which is designated by the binoculars, and will automatically find the port that is connected to. If you know which port it is connected to, you can select it from the drop-down box. Timeout I would set to 2000, number of retries to 2, and the baud rate 9 times out of 10 will automatically be selected for you. If it's not, 9600 will do fine. The next thing we need to do is set up our site location. I'm going to go through and put in a site location for now, and once we have this set up, unlike when using a handset, it will remember all the details each time you load it. Once you've put in the details, you can give it a name, save. If you are using multiple sites that you know the latitude and longitude of, you can select them and configure them and give each of them individual names using the drop-down menu. At this present moment, this is all the information that you really need to set up. One thing I will point out, you may wish to set up whether or not you wish to use JNOW or J2000. Now I'm going to set it as J now and click OK. And we can now test just to make sure that it will actually connect to the mount. Click connect. It should bring up a box such as this showing following settings, and under normal circumstances it will be parked as designated by the flashing parked signs. If you click the setup icon here, there are a couple of things that we can do on this screen. This screen is very much a replacement for your handset. We have your standard north, south, east, west controls. We have a number of speed controls. We have a spiral control. Down the bottom here we have your tracking rates. So we have for sidereal, we have lunar, solar, and the option for a custom if so wish. The next option we have is to be able to create custom park positions. If you are using a portable setup, this step can be skipped. If you are using a static telescope and mount on a pier with, say, a roll-off roof or a roll-off observatory, and you require a custom park position to enable the mount to be cleared when you roll the roof on and off or the observatory on and off, this is where you would set that up. To go through the process of setting that up, initially we will want to unpark the mount from its normal home position and use the slew controls with a relatively fast setting to go through the process of slewing the mount and scope to its designated point. Once you have the mount and the telescope in a position that you feel is acceptable, we will then go over to this button here and define that as a new park position. When you click that button, it will bring up a new window. At this point, we can create a custom park position by inputting a custom name, and click set. As you can see from the dials, it will give us a custom position. Once that is set, we can now close that down, return it to its standard park position. But if we also wish to, we can select the custom park or the standard park from a drop-down menu. To slew it to the custom park position, we select our custom park position, tell it to park to it, and once it is finished parking, once more you will get the parked flashing on the screen. When you wish to unpark it at the beginning of the evening, you have the option clicking unpark, and if you so wish, you can also move it back to the normal counterweights down, scope up position. At this point, basic setup for EQMod is complete. We can now disconnect EQMod from the mount. The next piece of software that we're going to configure is Stellarium Scope. We double click Stellarium Scope, you notice we will get a message because we've not run Stellarium at least once. So we're going to double click and run Stellarium for the first time. And at this point, it may or may not give an error regarding OpenGL and 3D performance. Under normal conditions, you should not see this. However, if you do, click Abort. And one option we have is if you go to the Start menu, we scroll down to Stellarium. The option we want is MESA mode. Now what I am going to do at this present moment, again, is right click that, click More, and pin that to the Start menu. The taskbar, I do apologise. And once again, we will run Stellarium. Once that has been run for the first time, we can quit out of it as it is not needed anymore by either coming down and clicking Quit, or by holding down the Control key and press Q. At this point, we can now run Stellarium Scope again. Click OK. It will give us an error regarding issues with the configuration, but you can ignore that as it is the first time of running it. You will need to scroll down and read the agreement, advised not to show the screen again, and click that you understand it. At this point, it will give an option for you to enable it to allow access to the network and through the firewall. There are a few things we need to configure here. We need the option of using either, again, J2000 or JNow. So in keeping with the previous time, I will use JNow. We will need to select our mount using the Ascom telescope chooser. So under normal conditions, you will select the option for your mount here. However, again, for the purpose of the tutorial, I'll be using the simulator. First time you do this, I may well ask you to select the properties window and bring that up. Once that has done so, you can click OK, making sure that all the information is the same, and click OK. You should then see your telescope in the box here. There is a few other things we may need to set up. In your options menu, you go down, you may need to tell it to modify the Stellarium command line. Depending on whether or not you're using the 32-bit version or the 64-bit version, you'll have to tell it where to find the Stellarium exe file to be able to launch it. I'm going to click on the box, and depending on whether or not you're using the 64-bit version or the 32-bit version, you'll want to proceed to find the Stellarium installation folder. We will scroll down, find the Stellarium application, click Open. Now, if you remember a minute ago, I said about if you have issues with Stellarium and you require to use the MESA option, you will also have to designate that here. To be able to get the MESA option into this box and give it the command line that is needed, what we can do is we can go down to your taskbar, right click on Stellarium, right click on the Stellarium again, and click Properties. Where it gives us the option for target, what we wish to do is select this section here and copy it. Click OK. And then we need to create a space at the end and paste that in. If you're using the standard version of Stellarium without the MESA mode, you will not need to add this in. And that should give you a successful record. One other option you may wish to consider is getting it to minimize the windows, as well as automatically starting Stellarium when you start Stellarium Scope, which is the option I will choose. The other option you wish to set is for it to automatically connect to the mount, which we will also choose. At this point, if you are connected to your mount and the power is on, we can once again connect it, and you should find you get a successful connection to the mount. We can now start Stellarium. If that loads, we can once again go down, quit out of it, and at this point we can update the Stellarium configuration with the settings we have just applied. We click on that, we click yes, click yes, click yes, and it will automatically load it with the new settings all applied to the configuration file for Stellarium. That is the basics of Stellarium Scope setup. Once we have Stellarium started, the next piece of information we will need to configure is our location. So we're going to go over to the side menu, click on the top menu for the location window. At this point, we can enter our location or select it from any number of options on the drop down box. For the purposes of the tutorial, I will go through and create a custom location. Again, you can set this up so that you have multiple locations if so needed. At this point we can click Add to List, and select Use Current Location as Default, and we can now click out. We click back into it, you should find that it has remembered it. That is the basic setup for Stellarium complete. There are a number of options, one of which I would recommend is that you set the setting for equatorial mode and disable full screen view. We can go to the corner and drag it across to the size that we wish. If we are now connected to a mount, we should be able to unpark it, select our tracking mode, and if we find a location that we wish to go to, using the options in Stellarium Scope that were previously defined, we have slew, sync and cancel. The keys here represent the numbers 1, 2 and 3 on your keyboard, and to activate them we will use them in conjunction with the control key. So if we issue a slew command by selecting our target, which for this example we will use Capella, we hold down the control key and press 1. What you will see here is the scope start to move and go to where it thinks Capella should be located. That is the first part of the setup complete. At this point, you will have a system that will connect to your mount and be able to issue GoTos the same as your handset. At this point, part 1 is complete. What we can do is we can park the scope back to its home position. once that has parked message, we can now go through, close down Stellarium, disconnect from the mount, and click exit. Click yes. At this point, it is now safe to turn off the power to your mount. This concludes part 1.